good morning from the States and good afternoon, evening to wherever everybody else is. Yeah, we're super excited to talk with some of our partners today. And just would really like to start off if we could just kind of go down the line and introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about your company so everybody knows who everybody is, and then we can dive into a discussion. And Merilee, we'll start with you.
Perfect. So I'm here representing the Short-Term Accommodation Association. So we are the UK's organization which brings together everyone across the sector, from the platforms like Airbnb, Expedia, HomeAway, Vrbo, through to property managers like One Fine Stay, my own company UnderTheDoormat, House. I mean, there's tons, Sykes cottages, through to all of the providers in the industry. So companies like Minut, laundry providers, insurance providers like Guardhog and Pickle. So we kind of represent the entire industry. We work with government around, how to regulate the industry, how the industry can work together with government to ensure that it grows responsibly. And ultimately, our goal is to promote the responsible growth of the industry. So seeing it grow over time so that all the companies who operate within it have a great chance to grow their businesses commercially.
Awesome. Thank you. That's yeah, Minut is definitely behind renting responsibly. Christoph, how about you and Nuki?
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. My name is Christoph. I'm the head of B2B at Nuki Home Solution. Nuki is the European market leader in retrofit smart access solutions, and especially in the short rental industry. Our main product, the smart lock, does a very good job for hosts. Our smart lock can be installed inside of the door within a few minutes without screwing or something like else. And we have partnered up in the past with great partners like Smoobu. We are an official partner of Airbnb, so that hosts can let in their guests either remotely or let them open with their smartphone or use the keypad that we have also as accessory in our product. So that's what we are doing in the short rental industry, and looking very forward to this discussion and how we can all move on in these times.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, super cool technology. Thanks. Philip, on to you, please.
Hi. Yes, I'm Philipp, one of the two co-founders of Smoobu, located in Berlin. We are actually, in the end, offering a property management system. I always say we're pretty much doing everything that you can cover with technology aside for the sales part. Because that's something that Airbnb, Booking, etc. do. Apart from the website builder that we offer and the booking engine, that's obviously helping for people to push their direct bookings, which we've seen in quite an increase in over COVID times, especially. And we basically do anything from the channel management, so we're connecting to the channels, communication, payments, booking engine, but also I think what's quite important here, we're pretty much connecting the whole industry. So we're connected to Nuki. We can send out Nuki codes to our guests, to whomever. We are in the process of connecting to Minut. Then we're making sure that we actually notify guests about what's happening. We notify hosts what's happening. We notify cleaner what's happening, etc., etc. And what we really work on the most, and what I really think differentiates us a lot, is that we focus on usability. So we're trying to make it very easy to use, and we're actually focusing on the rather small scale agencies, but even more so on owners, because we think that in the end, in these days, owners of vacation homes, short-term rentals, they can pretty much manage it all relatively easy without the larger agencies, and obviously eventually be more profitable.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting to hear you're growing in the US market as well. And then my colleague, and I should have said from the beginning, I work at Minut, sales consultant in the US. and work closely with Buster. So Buster, I'll let you introduce yourself and then we'll take it away.
Thank you, Tyler. And thanks to everyone who has joined today and taking your time off busy schedules to listen in. My name is Buster. I'm the head of sales at Minut, and I work with Tyler and Victoria here. We have a service that helps you protect your homes. So basically, when you've chosen the right PMS system, being Smoobu, and when you've gotten into the property using your retrofitted smart lock Nuki, we are the people that will help you keep your properties protected. This is noise monitoring for parties. This is also when the property is vacant as a home security system, and we also give you information about temperature and the humidity in your homes. So it's all done with a really privacy safe solution that doesn't record anything. And we're just helping people to try to rent out their properties more responsibly and to be able to help the whole industry, and particularly around a lot of the regulations that are coming in, to be able to keep the market and to keep the industry healthy by giving property managers the right tool to be able to know when something is going on in the property, like a party, but also to prevent the party in the first place. And keep a good relationship with the guests. Ultimately, the guests are the central part of all of our businesses, and having a good relationship with them, not treating everyone as a potential suspect or a potential party thrower, and just keeping that conversation really nice. So that's what we try to do at Minut, and really glad to be here today to talk to all of you guys about the resilience in the industry. So thank you, Tyler.
Yeah, thank you, Buster. And yeah, and thanks for bringing up that's what we're here to talk about, is the resiliency. And what I didn't want was to go to look back too much. Obviously, the past year has been awful in a lot of ways for a lot of industries. But just a kind of a question for everybody, and we'll look forward kind of after this. But I'm just curious how you've adapted during the past year with COVID. To stay relevant, to stay in business, just what have you done to adapt in the past year?
I think I'll jump in here because actually I can talk at a bit of an industry level. One of the things that's been really interesting is, of course, every time we go into lockdown, then that means there's a lot of properties that are sitting empty. So last March, when that happened for the first time, we launched as an industry the NHS Homes program. And what that did was it allowed all of the professional property managers who normally would have had guests staying to offer those homes up to NHS workers for free. Now, obviously, that's charitable. That doesn't help the revenues coming in, etc. But it's achieved a couple of things. The first thing was, of course, it meant in our discussions with government that it was much easier for us to be discussing and saying, look, our industry needs government support and grants and all these things, when actually we were doing charitable things to help government. So that was incredibly helpful in that regard. But I think also, back in those days, there was a lot of negative press about our sector, about, people are going to holiday homes and this is spreading COVID and all these things. So to have a positive story about how we were actually helping in the communities that we operate was incredibly important at that time. But, with all good things like that, sometimes you start them and you don't know where it's going to end. And I have to say that this has been an incredibly positive story for the industry, because we took NHS Homes and then we realized that we were having conversations with government about NHS workers being able to stay in homes rather than them getting put into hotels, which of course is not really where they want to be when they're going to be staying there for long periods. And the first conversations were, you can't, because it's just all peer-to-peer. There are no standards, and therefore we couldn't possibly spend government money to put people in these properties. So we were able to use it as education that no, actually there are standards. We do have accreditation through Quality in Tourism. And there are companies that do operate to similar standards to hotels. And that's now opened up a whole new opportunity. And we've created in the UK the Trusted Stays platform, by the way, any of this doesn't have to be UK specific, because the Trusted Stays platform could be used in other countries in Europe, or could be used also in the US as a way to bring all the professional operators under one umbrella, and therefore sell into government and in the future into corporates. And off the back of that, 2 weeks ago, we're the first organization to ever do a government RFP for stays. So what that means now is all the companies who are part of STAA, who've got accredited, can now sell to government, which is now creating the commercial opportunities that the sector needs for the years ahead. And obviously, if we can sell into government, well, if it's good enough for government, it's also good enough for companies. And so breaking into that market is absolutely huge. So I think it's a great story about how the industry came together in tough times. We created a solution which was charitable at the start, but is actually turning upside down this theory that our industry doesn't have standards, and is actually creating commercial opportunities. Because guess what? The STR pilot that we ran to get data about us compared to hotels, service departments, says that consumers are 11% more likely coming out of COVID to book a short-term rental, while every other type of accommodation is down. So COVID is proving to be the catalyst to driving consumer perception of our industry. And why not take that catalyst and help us to get into sectors that our industry could never reach before? So I think that's pretty exciting, and hopefully is something that will benefit all of the companies in the sector who operate to the highest standards.
Well, that's amazing. What a highlight of a otherwise terrible year. I mean, I think that's amazing. Yeah, thank you. I asked that question to people, and I always expect, layoffs and, stories of just, and I've heard them, right? I mean, not every property manager and, partner has made it, but that's actually really exciting. And hopefully we can bring some of that to the US. Anybody else in terms of just kind of adaptation over the past year in terms of employees or strategy? Or
I mean, we pretty much last year in the beginning of when this whole mess started in our industry, I mean, we did a lot of communicating to our clients. I mean, that from telling them how they would have to adapt to maybe some longer stays, or how they would have to change their strategy. But then also a lot in terms of what they can do once this is actually over. And then what we saw, that we actually had like super different customer segments. Usually those that were owning 5, 6, 7 extra homes, I mean, they didn't struggle too much financially. So they obviously wouldn't leave us. And for them, for these kind of customers, it was sort of a blueprint for them to list on more portals, to rebuild the website. Then we did build quite a few features that enabled them, for example, to stick to, I remember in the UK, there's certain rules that you need to have like 2 or 3 days in between stays, like to automate all these processes over all your portals. And that's what we did. We're telling them, hey, you need to be more flexible once you get back to the actual market. And if you're looking at Germany, for example, I mean, we did have a crazy summer last year. I mean, everybody was pretty much booked out. So that was not such a bad season. Then for this year, I mean, I don't know if you guys heard it, but I mean, they just announced that we're locked until March 7th now. So nothing's happening until then. But we are expecting a run on vacation rentals because, as you've said before, the vacation rentals are the ones that are probably going to be the strongest coming out of this crisis. And that's what we saw last summer, and that's what we're seeing this year. And we can actually see a lot of excitement in the industry with people that are still around. Obviously, we've lost some clients into long-term stays, etc. But those that are up and running, they're now getting everything set up, listing on more platforms, automating themselves, and most of all, starting to generate those direct bookings. And I mean, we're just making sure that people have a competitive advantage over those that are not using automation so much. And I mean, we're very bullish for this year, but let's see what's happening after Easter. I think that's the most interesting part that's coming up.
Thanks, Philip. That's a common theme that I've heard of the companies that do make it. They've been using the downtime to, the engineers are working frantically, new features, let's rebuild this. I mean, now's the time to kind of catch our breath. And so it sounds like Smoobu has kind of done the same thing, which is a great place to be. So thank you.
Yeah, and we built up on people, so that's something I'm super happy about, that we didn't have to let people go. And I mean, super thankful to our clients that actually stayed with us. So we were in the end, I mean, able to actually feed our employees, and we're back hiring, which I think shows a lot about the potential in the market.
Yeah, and how cool has it been? I think that everybody's kind of come together within our industry to, I think to kind of give referrals and just whether you're a potential competitor or not, it's been kind of a nice I think kind of a nice coming together. Any Christoph, Buster, you guys have any adaptations from the past year?
Yeah, so I mean, here with Nuki, we have been quite lucky because our core business is driven by the B2C clients. So our product is mainly used by B2C clients, roughly 80%. And in B2B, we also used, as Philipp already said, we used the time to build up integrations, to work on those integrations, to make our product more fit for the short rental industry. And also, to be fully honest, we also changed a little bit our approach, because now it's not 100% more. You have to do it the smart way, but you can also say, no contact anymore for the key handover and so on. So we are aware that most of the companies are not in this time not ready to invest in hardware like smart locks, but we try to bring them in trial. Said, okay, try the smart lock at home, and you will see how much it helps you as a private person and how it works. And we did a lot of trial approaches over the past year to be now ready to have a full pipeline, and also have people who already tested it because they had also the time to test it, to be fully honest. So we had this situation, and I think we did quite well over the past year as well as company.
Thanks. And just to follow up the question I had for you, I mean, I know in the past year everybody's become ultra conscious of what they're touching, and the run on hand sanitizer in the beginning. Have you seen increased demand for touchless, the touchless technology, and where do you see that kind of going in the future, post COVID as we recover?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we're all human and we forget quite fast. So I'm not sure if it will stay like forever, but hopefully we will have a little bit more and be more careful about these situations. And for sure it helps, because people now understood that, okay, careless, contactless entry and to avoid too much contacts can also prevent from disease. So we're pretty confident that this will help also as Philipp already mentioned, in automation processes in the future.
Cool, thank you. And Buster, you had touched on this kind of when you were doing your intro, but regulations. I was hoping maybe you could just speak a little bit about what you've seen in terms of government regulations in the short-term rental industry, and where you see them going.
Yeah, so we have, so I think we're the only noise monitoring system or smart home sensor that works exactly everywhere in the world, since we're wireless and sit in the ceiling and don't need a plug. And that gives us the benefit of having a lot of insight into a lot of different markets, because we have users in I think well over 100 different countries. And what maybe is the most striking thing for me is how quickly people So all the restrictions in the world have been changing very rapidly in different areas. But what has been really interesting to see is like how quickly the market adapts when a restriction is like when it gets lighter or when it gets stricter. So it's very quick to respond, and that's nice to see, and that gives a lot of hope for the future as well, that it will bounce back quickly. But in terms of regulation, this is something I think that has gone on long before COVID, and it's just been more and more of this, and it's in certain areas where there's more regulation than in other areas. But I think it's something that everyone's aware of, and that people are working to sort of it's sort of a reality that we face, and we want to help people to be able to be more compliant, or to be able to show that it's a responsible, like Merilee was saying, like there are structures and there are processes and there are routines, and most property managers have really good, they run their businesses really professionally, and this is sort of, we're giving them a receipt for that, like we're giving them like their noise monitoring, and so they can prevent that from the first place. So in terms of regulation, I think this type of all these companies working together can help give some ammunition for the property managers to continue to run profitable businesses, even in cities where there are tighter and tighter regulations.
Yeah, and I can kind of come in and talk a little bit about the regulatory side. Obviously, in Scotland, just in the past week, new legislation has gone through, which is going to require licensing. It's going to be implemented over the next couple of years. And in many ways, it's one of the tightest regulations that have come in anywhere. So I think it's an example of where, where there becomes a kind of groundswell of people in the community and in government who see our industry negatively, taking away homes from people, causing disturbances, all these types of things. And let's be honest, it's not just in places like Edinburgh. We've heard about it in Amsterdam, in Barcelona, in places like Venice,
Berlin.
I mean, so and the key for me is that you will always get people who don't like something new, and even though we consider our industry now to be pretty well established, in the whole scheme of things in cities, it's still relatively new as something that people are used to having around them. And so the natural reaction, whether it's a government minister, whether it's a building manager, whether it's a community leader, whoever, is that they hear lots of people complaining, oh, I don't like these Airbnbs. Oh, there was a party next door. Oh, there's strangers coming in and out of my building. Oh, somebody didn't put out the rubbish when they should have. And all of these things they consider them annoyances, but it actually gets some people so worked up that they decide to campaign against our industry. So what can we do? I mean, there's two options. One is we wait for the regulations and then we understand them and then we react to them. Or two, we actually get ahead of the regulations. And I think that's actually really important because there's a number of things we can be doing together as an industry. The first one is obviously around accreditation. Most people argue that our industry has no standards. Well, actually, that's not true. I mean, as Buster was just saying, actually, most of the professional managers operate to a really high standard. There are regulations which apply to our industry. On the Short-Term Accommodation Association website, we list all the regulations that apply to anyone who's doing short-term rentals in the UK. But people aren't aware of that. So accreditation gives a little badge. In the UK, we work with Quality and Tourism, and we chose to partner with them because they actually came from the traditional hotel and hospitality sector. They ran the Visit England scheme. So we didn't want to say, oh, look, this is our industry solution. We wanted to go out and say, look, we found the people who deliver accreditation for all different types of accommodation. And actually those guys created one specific for our industry, so that it has credibility in the eyes of government regulators and other people. And that's great because it means that the providers who are delivering things well can get accredited and put that stamp of approval so that consumers know about it, the government recognizes that there are people who know what they're doing. But that then, of course, isn't enough, because all that does is it just gives a way for us to say, look, we can license ourselves, we can accredit ourselves. But then we also created what's called a buildings policy and a buildings technology. And we partnered with a company called Lückl, so that, you know, all these places are calling for registration schemes. They want to license our sector. They want all these checks. Well, the last thing we want is that it becomes government and local councillors going around checking all of our properties. It's inefficient. They're going to want money for it. And by the time they implement it, then actually the industry is going to move so far that probably what they've implemented is irrelevant anyway. So the buildings policy and the technology allows any building that has short-term rentals happening in it to actually get the visibility of who's doing short-term rentals, who's managing it. Is it an agent? Is it a host? What platforms are they advertising on? Because let's be honest, it's not always Airbnb. And it just gives transparency to that building that people doing short-term rentals are doing it properly. Also, if there's a problem, the neighbor calls the building manager. They know exactly who to call that can solve the problem before the police get involved. Because half the time, the problem is people don't know about it. And that's why solutions like Minut are really helpful, because if actually the owner or the manager gets a notification before the neighbor complains to the building management or to the council, we've stopped the problem right at the beginning. And I think those kinds of things are amazing. So it costs £20 per year for anyone who's short-term renting in a building to sign up. The building pays nothing. The council can get aggregated data, so they feel they have transparency. And all of a sudden, we're tackling all the problems that the councils and government ministers and everyone complain about. So there's no need to put archaic regulations in place of licensing and all these kind of complicated things to stop our industry. So again, it's about creating solutions so that actually the industry can grow and the commercial opportunities within our industry are bigger. Because if every building bans short-term rentals, we're not going to have a big enough industry for all of our companies to thrive. So again, another solution which is available, we're happy to share it with any other country, with anyone who's having problems with building managers, wherever you are. The system is live and can be tested anywhere in the world. Let's get it out there. Let's have these solutions, because if we can, we're going to actually stop the need for more regulation, which is critical to ensuring we all have an industry that's going to keep growing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it says regulations that hold everybody back from growing. And just a quick follow-up question, and you kind of just answered it, but do you see that accreditation? Because I love that idea of accreditation. Do you see that as kind of being a copy paste? I know you said it could kind of be worldwide, but I know in the US, something, some standard would be so nice. And property managers are asking for it, right? They're like, regulate us. We don't mind. We want to be good actors. And so something like that would be.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, I'm in discussions with VRMA, which is obviously the main industry player in the US, about how we can have a common global standard for accreditation, and that there might be, different accreditation providers like Quality and Tourism or whoever, so that any property manager can say, well, I want to get an accreditation to this kind of global scheme, and I can choose this provider or this provider to give it to me. So that's something that's in discussions, because I think the sooner that we've got a global standard for it, the better that's going to be, because then the platforms can also recognize it. But in the meantime, obviously, what we've got in the UK is pretty simple to copy paste almost anywhere. And Quality and Tourism, who we work with, are happy to conduct accreditations anywhere. So that's a possibility that already exists. And, again,
Nice.
we spend the time building these things. We just want to share them with everyone, so that we don't all have to be recreating the wheel, but we can benefit from what others have already adapted.
Awesome. Thank you. That's huge, especially when we can share that and, not have, like you said, not have to reinvent the wheel. That's very cool. And Philip, I had a question for you, because there are a lot of PMSs out there, right? Especially in the US, but in Europe as well. Have you seen kind of over the past year, or do you see going into the future, merging of property management solutions companies?
I mean, first of all, you're right. If you just look at the market, you will find a lot of property management systems. I think if you look a little closer, they differentiate it a lot. I mean, you have those really targeting the property management, the bigger companies like Guesty, Avancio, etc., and then us more targeting the owners, so the long tail market. What you're seeing now, and that's quite interesting, is Booking.com, Airbnb, etc., them already not giving out their API any longer to any new systems, unless you are already very big, which is quite difficult to become very big if you don't have an Airbnb API. I mean, that's sort of tricky, and I think that a lot of PMSs have struggled severely during these times. I mean, especially those that were based on commission, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, 5%. They were making a lot of money, obviously, during good times, but nothing during bad times. Whereas us was a bit of a different way. I mean, we still had our subscription fees, so we were doing quite well, but owners still paying a rather low price for what they're getting, even if it's just handling cancellations and communications. I mean, it's a bad situation, but it's still saving a lot of time. Do I see consolidation in that market? For sure, there's a few bigger players looking around and taking over some smaller companies, and I think there will be. But personally, I haven't really looked into it and considered it, also because I think for the time being, there's such a big market that there's enough for everybody still at this time. I mean, we talk to the bigger portals a lot, and they sometimes give us some insights and data, how many of their properties are actually coming into their system and being connected. And if you're looking at that number, I mean, I just recently received some numbers about Greece, and it's less than 15% of properties actually being connected to software. And I think that's going to change big time, because I mean, the margins are becoming tighter, and people are becoming younger. This is what we see a lot, and more tech savvy, and they are all moving on these platforms because they're seeing that they have quite a potential, and also that they are actually having better guests in the end. Because I mean, that's the feedback we get a lot, that our average guest, I mean, that we pretty much manage automatically, rates the properties like quite a lot of better. I mean, in the end, they get better reviews. Yeah, but so I don't think it's really the time for consolidation yet, because consolidation, you would need sort of a smaller market for everybody to jump on, and the big players, they will really start this once the market is sort of saturated, and you can't really find too many players anymore, so you won't be able to grow organically right now. I mean, the property owners out there, not using software yet, it's still a crazy amount.
Yeah, well, and that's a great segue. In terms of kind of going forward and looking forward, I mean, that 15% is blows my mind that it's that low, and that there's that much opportunity out there.
Yeah, I mean,
and so
that's Greece, but just
right,
one example that I recently
right.
Yeah.
But still, yeah, I mean, I just, I had assumed that it would have been a much higher number, but kind of thinking forward, and maybe Buster or Christoph, you have thoughts on this, kind of like Philipp was saying, what do you see as kind of the new standard, the new norm as we come out of this, in terms of technology or partners, industry as a whole? Any big changes that will result from COVID and its effects?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even about COVID, but especially in our industry with smart door locks, we are not even at the early maturity there, because there are so many doors and cylinders out there. They're not smart yet, so that we are at the very beginning of a big journey. But we really see, especially in the B2B segment and in the short rental segment, that we really can help to scale up, because you can, not only with software, but also with the help of a hardware, you can really scale up, because you save time, you save money, you save people to be there physically. And so I think it's a long journey, and it's at the very, very beginning. Yeah, but I think the more to invest now, the better you are if the holiday seasons are back again, and you really save a lot of time and money with all those components that are bespoken in this group.
I mean, I jump in onto that with Christoph. I mean, because we're connected to all these different systems, such as Nuki, but also other software like, I don't know, Beyond Pricing, Price Labs. The number of our users actually using smart locks or using additional pricing software, for example, is super small in relative terms to what we have on the platform. So I think there's crazy opportunities for all these companies somehow moving in this Airbnb sector. And I think there's going to be a lot of automation happening and a lot of sales coming up for everybody in this cosmos.
Thank you. Christoph, I just have to ask, does it kill you when you see the old key box?
It did its job over the past few years, so that's fine. Yeah, I mean, it's not smart. You cannot change it from a distance and so on and so on. But it was a first step, and it's always every time has its technology, and we think we are the next step on this technology and to make access smarter. But I mean, also, I don't know if it's per country, but in Germany, in Vienna, some insurance company jump already out if there's a lockbox outside of the house, because it's so visible and it's so easy to break in. So I think those things will also help us a lot to speed up.
Interesting. I would not have thought of that, but yeah, I mean, you see a lockbox and you automatically know
what's inside.
Yep. Buster, any thoughts from kind of from Minut's perspective on kind of what the new norm is in terms of kind of what we've all been talking about, regulations and smart technology and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, we have been Minut has been in the home security sector. We've been working with insurance companies. We've been working with telco companies. A lot of different areas, having our sensor applied in different settings. And I think vacation rental is by far the industry that has been most adoptive and pushing for change and progress. Extremely open for testing new technology and being open to looking ahead. So of all, like by far my favorite industry is this one. And I just think people are more open in general to putting technology in homes. I think it has been a little bit of a learning curve on what technology, and especially when you're talking about what we do is you have noise monitoring in a home where you're monitoring your guests. It can sound like it's scary in the beginning. You don't know what that means, but now we really are getting the home industry with everyone involved is getting more and more has more and more knowledge of how this works, and it's becoming not a question of if you should put technology in your home or in your vacation rental, but which one you should put in, and what more would how you fit it to your different to your business, because that's another thing. Like everyone's business in the industry is different. Partly it's because we are all over the world. Partly it's because we offer different types of accommodations. Partly it's because we offer different types of experiences. But that means everyone's business is slightly different. Everyone's doors are slightly different. Everyone's homes are slightly different. Sometimes you have a jacuzzi, sometimes you have an apartment. Everything needs, so that there's a lot of different variations. And that means the technology you implement, you need to know what you're doing. And I think the biggest change I've seen over the last year, and I think going forward, is that it'll be a much more educated market in terms of technology.
Yeah, and I think actually one thing to add, Tyler, is that if I look ahead and I think what's going to matter to people, I mean, we're an industry, I've heard there's more than 20,000 property managers across Europe. I mean, very, very disaggregated. So to some of the discussion, it's really important that people find the right technologies and they know how to grow their businesses. Will there be some consolidation? Sure, no doubt. I mean, in the UK, we've seen the likes of Sykes and Aways buying up lots of the smaller operators. But in many ways, I actually think that the best thing about our industry is the fact that it's a lot of small entrepreneurs, individuals who start hosting themselves on Airbnb and then build out their businesses, or, a family-run property management company in a holiday destination that's been around for years. They know everyone in the community. They provide a great guest experience. But often it's all of these providers, they need the technology, they need the way to connect in and actually grow their businesses successfully. And I think what's going to be important is that, I think a lot of people learned their lesson of just being single platform. I mean, when the crisis hit, depending on which platform you might have depended on, if it was booking.com or Airbnb or whoever, their policies and how they responded in the crisis were very, very different. And that impacted people's businesses in various different ways. I won't rehash them because I think most people have had enough pain at that moment. But I think the key learning is, of course, how to make sure that you're connected, that you've got the best channels to market. I mean, one of the things that's been really great for us, we were one of the first companies to work with Marriott Homes and Villas. So obviously when the markets reopen and Americans start traveling in Europe again, obviously having access to those markets, those higher end guests is going to be really important. And, we work with smaller providers through Hosperia to get access to those different channels that they would otherwise not be able to do. And I think that's what's going to change, is that smaller providers are realizing that they need new channels to market compared to what they did before. They need new technology. They need remote access. They need all these different things. But often, if you're a small business, you don't know where to begin. And that's why I think these sessions are really important. That's why being a part of your association in your country is really important, because that's how you'll find the other companies who can potentially help your business grow. And I really, really loved what Christoph said as well about how, this is the time. We know that when all the countries start opening up again, people are going to be dying to go on holiday. So now is the time for companies to be implementing those new technologies, getting their systems and processes in order, all those things, because if they can do that, when they come out the other side, they're going to be more efficient. They're going to be able to do more with fewer people, so that they can be more profitable. And hopefully that's going to help all of these smaller businesses grow successfully and keep the authenticity in our market, which is what makes us unique compared to all the big hotels. And if we can do that as a sector, I think that's going to put us in a really strong position to not just be growing at the 30% year on year that we were pre-COVID, but to actually accelerate the pace of growth coming out the other side of COVID.
Great points. Yeah, thanks, Merilee. And to touch on Buster, yeah, I know I've seen it, but just the savviness of consumers has grown. They're aware that they need something, and it's just a matter of, what technology do I use? Got a question from one of the participants. So apart from the individual sectors, companies are changing COVID measures by taking temperature. They look for contactless doors, but keeping security. So I guess the question there would probably be, aside maybe from our our short-term rental industry, kind of what do you see on a kind of grander scheme? Because I know a lot of companies are, they have nothing to do with short-term rentals. They might be an insurance company, but they're taking a look at, okay, maybe we need different locks now. Maybe we need things like that. Does anybody have any input on kind of just stepping out of our industry for a moment and what ramifications it might have?
I mean, if we stay sort of close to our industry, I mean, if we're looking at the mobility of people, looking at flight operators, looking at train operators, etc., I think they are going to be taking a lot of measures that will help us as well, because I mean, once those airplane companies make sure that people actually have safe travels by, I don't know, maybe testing them, where like measuring their temperature, etc. That's also going to support us in a great deal, because I mean, we know they have safe travels. We know they are safe at our places. So I think there's going to be a lot of stuff happening there.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be really interesting, because obviously there's a lot of talk about vaccine passports and all of these kinds of things. I mean, look, at the end of the day, you needed yellow fever vaccination to travel to certain countries in the past. So I don't actually think this is such a crazy idea that we'll start to see some of these measures coming into play. And I think when you bring that back to our industry, we implemented cleaning protocols, and, it doesn't actually matter where you are in the world. The same protocols that we had in the UK were the EHHA ones, and also very similar to the VRMA ones that came out in the US. And those protocols are just the start. I think we're going to see additional measures that we're going to need to take into account as a sector. In many ways, the professional operators are actually the people best capable of implementing them, because they're used to having consistent processes across the way they do things, and those sorts of things. But I think technology is going to play a massive role in this, because, as Christoph said, people are now wanting to not have a face-to-face check-in. So it's not about reducing costs or things like that. It's actually because the guests might actually want a different experience. So I think, we can certainly learn from the hotel industry. We can learn from the airline industry about some of the security measures and some of the things that are coming into play. I think we're going to see these things evolving over the next few months. And I think it's something that, I think industry bodies have a role to play, because if every single company has to go and figure this stuff out for themselves, I mean, that's a huge amount of time and effort. So I hope that that's where, STAA, VRMA, EHHA, all the different organizations can actually be putting out these guidelines, can be sharing best practice, so that companies can just adopt it in a really simple way. So, if your own industry body isn't doing that, obviously encourage them to do that, or, look at the ones that I've mentioned, because I know at least these 3 associations are doing a pretty good job about publishing this information and getting it out to everyone.
Thank you. Good points. I did have a question for Buster. Kind of during COVID, and then now, I don't want to say beyond, because we're certainly not beyond yet, but have you seen more parties, more noise incidents, whether it be noise related, or maybe somebody breaking into a vacant short-term rental?
Yeah, so basically the requests have changed a little bit, or the conversations we have with people have changed a little bit. Things like vacant properties are more of a discussion, but also parties being thrown because of closed clubs and restaurants, and you can't really go anywhere, so you rent an Airbnb and you throw a party. So, but that has been just different, people trying to solve their problems in different ways. So definitely some more of that, but overall, I think it's important to remember that even people that want to go to a vacation rental and have a good time, most of the times they're good people. They don't want to disturb the neighbors or anything like that. So that's basically people are just trying to live with their situation, whatever it is. But yeah, there has been some more of those issues, and some pretty bad. So in those cases, we're happy to help in terms of preventing them and sending notifications to the property managers so they can intervene in time. But a lot of times, like what we're doing with property management systems and integrations, being able to send, like Smoobu, to be able to send the text messages to guests. I think that's really important, because like when you build a fantastic system like Smoobu, or you build a smart lock like Nuki, you're thinking about the guest, and you're thinking about making it easy for them, and also for the property managers using the system, and building these integrations where you can, for example, send a text message to the guest, letting them know, like reminding them about the house rules. Most of them quiet down after a while. So there are very few occasions where there's really bad actors, and most occasions where people just want to have fun. But we help people handle those situations. But I think it's been, we've had all cases before, pre-COVID, and we'll have after, where it's just a case of, I mean, vacation rental ultimately is a holiday industry, and people are traveling and enjoying themselves, which they should. But sure. we help as much as we can to be on the to help them be on the right side of the line when it comes to neighbor disturbances and parties.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks. So I've got one more question for everybody, just quickly, and then Victoria is going to announce the winner of the STR bundle. What initiatives have you piloted to smooth and standardize guest check-in process, whether via smart home integrations or additional process changes? So standardizing the kind of the guest check-in process, making it smoother.
I mean, what we kind of do is, like, once we have the booking coming in from whatever portal, I mean, we automatically send out, obviously, the welcome message, but then also the link to the online check-in that the host can, like, individually define whatever they want to request, whether it's a copy of the ID, or whether it's passport number, etc., etc. And in parallel, we did develop a digital guest book, guidebook that pretty much has everything in there. And as we're speaking about, like, integration also with smart home, for example, like in this individual guidebook, you will also receive your Nuki key code. That's going to be there, and you will receive whatever information that you need to automatically just access the house. And it's dynamic, and we've also integrated messaging in that guest book. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, in the end, if you don't want to, as a host, and we do have quite a few that actually do want to speak to the guests personally, if you don't want to, you can automate it all. I mean, there's nothing really that's not available, and if it's not available within the PMS, we usually have an integration with someone that can help out there.
Awesome, thanks. And I want to be cognizant of everybody's time, so Victoria, I'll turn it back over to you. I want to thank all of you for speaking with us, and just a lot of really good information.
Yes, thank you so much to all of our panelists for great discussions, great answers, and thank you so much to Tyler for moderating.